I, 28M, just bought my first house. It's a beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood, with enough space for a home office, a guest room, and, most importantly, peace of mind. I worked hard for this. Years of saving, working overtime, and budgeting. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Turns out, my parents had other plans. I didn't even tell them I was house hunting. I knew from experience that if I did, they'd have something to say about every little decision. They'd insist I get something closer to them, something bigger, something they approve of. So I kept quiet until the deal was done. The moment I told them I had closed on a house, my mom's first reaction wasn't excitement or congratulations. It was, "Why didn't you consult us first?" My dad jumped in with, "Yeah, we could have helped you pick the right one." That was my first red flag. Then came the second. Mom, in her usual passive-aggressive tone, asked, "So when are you giving your sister the move-in date?" I blinked. What? That's when it all came crashing down. Apparently, my parents had this grand plan where my older sister, 34F, her husband, 35M, and their three kids, ages 10, 7, and 5, would move into my house. No discussion, no warning, just a fully fleshed out expectation that I, their single and child-free son, would obviously be housing them. And this wasn't some temporary thing, either. Nope. They planned for it to be permanent. Mom smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Well, sweetheart, they've been struggling with rent, and we just assumed you'd help out. You have all that space, and they need it more than you do." Dad chimed in, "It's only fair. You don't have kids to take care of. You should be supporting your family." I sat there, completely stunned. They weren't asking me to help. They were telling me what was going to happen. Like I was a damn NPC in their perfect little family plan. I laughed. Out loud. That seemed to piss them off. "You're joking, right?" I said. Mom's face darkened. "Excuse me? You actually thought I'd buy a house just so my sister and her entire family could live in it? Rent-free? Without even asking me?" Dad scoffed. "Don't be selfish. You're a grown man, and you don't need that much space. Besides, family takes care of each other." Family takes care of each other? Since when? See, my sister has always been the golden child. She barely worked a day in her life, bounced from one bad decision to another, and somehow, I was always expected to pick up the slack. Meanwhile, when I needed help, crickets. Growing up, I had to fight for everything. My parents never helped me with college, never supported me when I struggled financially, never even so much as lent me money when I was trying to get on my feet. I made it on my own. And now they just assumed I'd hand over my house. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and said, "Not happening." Mom's voice turned shrill. "What do you mean, not happening? You're not just going to abandon your sister and your nieces and nephew. You have a responsibility." I stared at her, deadpan. "No, I don't." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "You ungrateful little—" I walked out before he could finish. A few hours later, my phone exploded with texts. My sister had finally decided to say something. And by say something, I mean she went full nuclear. She texted me, "What is wrong with you? Mom and Dad said you're refusing to let us move in? You have 3 bedrooms. You're literally being a selfish a-hole." I replied, "It's my house. You were never entitled to it." She responded, "We are struggling. Do you even care about your nieces and nephew?" I replied, "Your kids are not my responsibility." She texted, "I hope you rot alone in that big empty house." Then she blocked me. That night, my parents tried calling. When I didn't pick up, they left a long, guilt-trippy voicemail about how family is everything and "I'll regret this when I'm old and alone." You know what's funny? I didn't feel guilty at all. I felt free. But that's not the end of it. This is where things really start to get interesting. Because a week later, I found out that my sister and her husband had been planning something even worse. And when I say worse, I mean absolutely insane. So after my sister blocked me and my parents gave me their whole "you'll regret this" speech, I figured that was the end of it. I had drawn my boundary. They were mad. Whatever. Then, a week later, I got a call from my cousin, Jake. Now, Jake is one of the only sane people in my family. He's been on my side for years, mostly because he also got screwed over by our parents' favoritism. So when he called, I picked up. The first thing he said was, "Dude, you are not going to believe what I just heard." I sat up. What? Your sister and her husband are still planning to move in. I laughed. Good luck with that. No, listen. They think they can still get the house. And your parents are helping them. That wiped the smile off my face. What do you mean, get the house? Jake hesitated, then said, they're talking about squatting. I felt like my brain short-circuited for a second. Squatting? Like illegal squatting? Yeah. Your mom told them you'd come around eventually, but in the meantime, they should just start moving in because you wouldn't have the heart to kick them out. I stood up so fast I almost knocked my chair over. You're joking? I wish. But they were literally discussing how to do it at dinner last night. Your sister said she'd just show up with her kids, and if she refused to leave, you wouldn't be able to do anything about it without looking like an a-hole. I was fuming. They were actually planning to move into my house against my will and just stay there? Like a hostile takeover? I had so many questions. Did they seriously think I wouldn't change the locks? Did they think I'd just roll over and accept it? Did they not realize how illegal this was? But then Jake dropped the real bombshell. Oh, and by the way, they've already packed up their apartment. I nearly choked. What? Yeah, they were bragging about how they'd be in by the weekend. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just dealing with entitled parents anymore. This wasn't just about favoritism or guilt trips. This was war, so I did what any sane person would do in my situation. I lawyered up. The second I got off the phone with Jake, I knew I had to act fast. My sister and her husband were seriously planning to squat in my house, and my parents were backing them up like some kind of twisted mafia, so I called a lawyer. Now, I wasn't entirely sure how squatters' rights worked, but I wasn't about to take any chances. I explained the situation to the lawyer, how my family was planning to illegally move into my house and refuse to leave. He immediately told me what to do. Change the locks, install cameras, lots of them, put up no trespassing signs. If they set foot on my property after that, it would be considered criminal trespassing, not just a family dispute. Do not let them in. Not for just to talk, not to see the house, not for any reason, so that's exactly what I did. I changed every single lock that night. I installed security cameras at the front door, back door, and garage. I even put a Ring doorbell camera in case they tried something sneaky. Then, I made it very clear that no one, not my parents, not my sister, not her freeloading husband, was welcome. Then I waited. Friday evening rolled around, and I was chilling in my living room, enjoying my first weekend in my house that I paid for. When I got a notification from my doorbell camera, I opened the app. There they were. My sister, her husband, their 3 kids, and a moving truck. I had to pause the video just to process the level of audacity. They actually rented a U-Haul and showed up like they were about to move in. I took a deep breath, then hit the intercom button. What do you think you're doing? My sister's head snapped up. She forced a smile and waved at the camera like this was some kind of family reunion. Hey, we're here. Can you open the garage? I laughed. Out loud. No. No, I cannot. She blinked. Then, like she had completely erased the last week of reality from her brain, she said, come on. Stop being dramatic. We're tired. Let us in so we can start unpacking. You're not unpacking anything because you're not moving in. That's when Mom stepped into the frame. Sweetheart, let's talk inside, okay? We don't need to do this out here. I clenched my jaw. That right there was my lawyer's warning. They wanted to get inside, because once they were inside, getting them out would be way harder. I said, no, we can talk just fine out here. Dad finally spoke up. Stop acting like a child and open the damn door. I responded, oh, I'm acting like a child? You literally tried to steal my house. Mom said, it's not stealing. It's family. At this point, I was done. I pulled up my phone, opened the security system app, and blared the siren. Instant chaos. The alarm blasted through the speakers. The kids started crying. My sister started yelling at me through the doorbell camera, and my mom launched into some kind of monologue about how I was betraying the family. Meanwhile, I just sat back, sipped my coffee, and watched them flail around like absolute morons. Eventually, they got the message. My sister stormed back to the moving truck, screaming about how I was leaving them homeless, which is BS. They still had their apartment, They just assumed I'd let them break their lease. My mom kept calling me a disgrace. My dad just shook his head like I was some kind of disappointment. And then they drove off. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Because the next morning, I woke up to the cops at my door. When I saw two cops standing on my front porch, I knew exactly who sent them. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and opened the door. Officer 1, morning, sir. We got a call about a domestic dispute? I almost laughed. A what? Officer 2, your family claims you locked them out of their home. I blinked. Oh, these people were actually insane. I crossed my arms. This is MY House. I bought it. They don't live here. Never have. The officers exchanged a look. Do you have proof of ownership? Lucky for me, I had prepared for this exact situation. I pulled up my phone, opened my email, and showed them the closing documents with my name on them. There you go. Mortgage in my name, title in my name, property tax, all in my name. I'm the only legal resident. The officers nodded as they skimmed through the documents. Then came the best part. Officer 1, all right, so they don't live here. That means they lied to us. Me, yup. Officer 2, and based on what you're telling us, sounds like they were planning to trespass. I smirked. That's exactly what they were doing. The officers sighed. One of them turned and started calling my parents. The second officer shook his head. I hate when people waste our time like this. 5 minutes later, my parents pulled up, angry. My sister wasn't with them, but I could see her husband in the passenger seat, arms crossed like a petulant child. Why Mom got out first, putting on her Oscar-winning performance. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. This is our son's house, yes, but he promised his sister could live here. Now he's gone back on his word, and we're just trying to work this out as a family. I couldn't believe the audacity. Officer 1 said, Ma'am, your son has provided us with legal proof that this is his house. He's under no obligation to let anyone else live here. Dad yelled, That's not how families work. We support each other. I told them, yeah? Where was all this support when I was struggling to buy the place? Did anyone offer me money? No? Then don't talk to me about support. My mom turned back to the officer, voice trembling like she was some kind of victim. He's making a mistake. He doesn't understand what he's doing. Officer 2 said, He's a legal homeowner, ma'am. He understands just fine. I was loving this. Then, my mom snapped, Mom, this is disgusting. We raised you. We gave you everything. And now you're treating us like strangers. I shrugged. You're acting like strangers. Dad pointed a finger at me. You're going to regret this. One day, you're going to need your family, and we won't be there. I just smiled. Promise? Mom gasped like I had just slapped her. The officers finally had enough. Officer 1, all right, that's enough. If you show up here again trying to force your way in, your son has every right to press charges. Officer 2, and if you try squatting, it won't just be trespassing. It'll be breaking and entering. My mom looked like she was about to have a full meltdown. Dad grabbed her arm and muttered, Let's go. As they got back in the car, my sister's husband finally rolled down his window and said the dumbest thing I've ever heard, You're done with us? I smirked. Oh no. Anyway, have a nice life? And with that, they sped off. I thought I was finally freed, and no more entitled parents. No more freeloading sister. Just me and my house. For 2 whole days, it was bliss. Then, on the 3rd day, I went out to grab some groceries. When I came back, my front door was wide open. For a second, I thought I was seeing things. Did I forget to close it? No way. I always triple check. Heart pounding, I stepped inside and immediately heard voices, and my family was inside. Not just my parents. My sister, her husband, and their 2 kids were there too. The living room was a mess. My couch had blankets and pillows thrown over it like someone had claimed it as a bed. My coffee table was covered in fast food wrappers and someone's half-drunk soda. My TV was on. My fridge was open. My sister's husband was literally wearing my hoodie. And there, sitting at my dining table, drinking coffee like he owned the place, was my dad. He looked up, saw me, and smiled. Dad said, Oh, you're back? We were wondering when you'd get home. I stared at him. Get out. He had the nerve to chuckle. Relax, son. We had a spare key. What? I whipped around to my mom, who was standing in the kitchen, unpacking groceries like she lived here. What spare key? I never gave you a key. My sister spoke up from the couch, barely looking up from her phone. Mom made one when she came over last time. I felt actual rage bubble up inside me. They had copied my key without my permission. They had waited for me to leave. They had broken in my mom's side, as if I was the one being difficult. We were going to tell you eventually. We just figured it was better this way. You needed some time to cool off. I clenched my fists. Cool off from what? From you trying to steal my house? Mom scoffed. Oh, don't be dramatic. We're family. We're just staying here for a while until your sister gets settled. Settled. Settled in my house. Then my sister, who was still sitting there like a literal parasite, finally looked up and shrugged. Sister, it's not a big deal. You have plenty of space. Oh, oh. Hell no. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and started dialing. Mom's eyes widened. Who are you calling? I met her gaze, stone cold. The police. And that was when the screaming started. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911 right in front of them. The moment my mom realized I was serious, her entire expression shifted from entitled smugness to wide-eyed panic. Wait, put the phone down. We can talk about this. My sister groaned like I was being so unreasonable. Oh my God, you're seriously calling the cops? Over your own family? I didn't say a word. The call connected. Dispatcher answered, 911. What's your emergency? I kept my voice calm, but I made sure to be loud enough for everyone in the house to hear. Yeah, I just came home to find multiple people inside my house. They broke in while I was gone and are refusing to leave. Mom gasped. Dad slammed his coffee cup on the table. Sister's husband said, Dude, what the hell? Dispatcher asked, Are you in a safe location? I said, Yes, I'm outside. But they're still inside my house, going through my stuff. That part wasn't even an exaggeration. While I was talking, my nephew was messing with my game console. Mom saw me watching and snatched the controller from him, like that somehow made it better. The dispatcher asked a few more questions, then said officers were on their way. I hung up. And that's when all hell broke loose. How could you do this to us? Mom snapped. Her voice hit that high-pitched, screechy tone she only used when she was about to go full martyr mode. Mom, I cannot believe you are doing this. To your own mother. Dad shook his head, looking at me with utter disappointment. You've really lost it. Meanwhile, my sister was just scoffing from the couch. You're being such a drama queen. I didn't say anything. I just stood by the door, waiting. It was a long, excruciating 5 minutes. They went through the entire emotional manipulation playbook. Step 1. Guilt trip. Mom started ranting about all the sacrifices she made for me. How she carried me for 9 months. How she fed me, clothed me, raised me, Mom. And this is the thanks I get? I let you into this world, and now you're trying to kick me out of my own son's house? I kept my arms crossed. Stone-faced. Me, it's not your house. Step 2. Fake reasoning. Dad leaned forward, trying to be the calm, reasonable one. Dad, look, we should be able to work something out. You don't even use all the rooms. Your sister and her family just need a place to stay. Would it hurt you to help out your family? I tilted my head. Why don't you let them move in with you? Silence. Then came step 3. Outright threats. Sister, fine. Be selfish. But don't expect us to ever help you when you need something. I smirked. Oh no. How will I survive without people who break into my house? And that was when the police arrived. The patrol car pulled up, lights flashing. 2 cops stepped out, and my parents immediately switched gears. Mom, who had been shrieking 2 minutes ago, suddenly became a sweet, helpless mother. She smiled at the officers, eyes watering. Mom, oh, officers, thank goodness you're here. I think there's been a misunderstanding. One of the cops, a tall guy with a shaved head, looked at me first. You the homeowner? Me, yes, sir. I pulled out my phone. I have the mortgage statement right here. He nodded, already unimpressed. Cop 1. And these people? I sighed. My parents, my sister, her husband, and their kids. They broke in while I was out. Mom gasped like I had slapped her. Oh, That is not what happened. Dad nodded firmly. This is a family matter. The second cop, a woman with dark blonde hair, raised an eyebrow. Cop 2, sir, do you live here? Dad hesitated. Dad, well, not technically, but Cop 1 turned to me. Do they have permission to be here? Me, no. I gestured toward my sister's husband, who was still wearing my hoodie. They made a copy of my key without telling me. I was gone for 30 minutes, and they moved in like they owned the place. Cop 2's face darkened. She turned back to my dad. Sir, I'm going to ask again. Do you live here? Dad sighed. No, but, Cop 1, then you need to leave. Now. Mom's face turned bright red. Are you serious? This is my son's house. I have a right to be here. Cop 2 didn't even flinch. Not unless he says so. And he doesn't. Sister rolled her eyes. You guys are really wasting police resources for this? Cop 1, we're happy to charge you all with trespassing. Mom's jaw dropped. Dad looked like he had swallowed a lemon. Sister's husband muttered, this is stupid. Then the cops gave them an ultimatum. Either they left voluntarily or they'd be arrested. And finally, they started moving. Mom kept wailing about how I was tearing the family apart. Dad muttered something about ungrateful brats. Sister didn't even look at me. She just grabbed her whiny kids and stormed out. But as they were leaving, my mom turned back, and in the most venomous tone I've ever heard, she spat out, you will regret this. And then, just like that, they were gone. I watched from my porch as they sped off. Cop 2 turned to me. You want to press charges? I thought about it. I shook my head. No. That was it. My family didn't have any more cards to play. After realizing they couldn't force their way in, they finally gave up. The call stopped. The guilt trips ended. And just like that, they were out of my life. For good. And that's how it all ended. No more drama. No more manipulation. Just peace. But what do you think? Did I handle this the right way? Or should I have gone further? Let me know in the comments.